I know every birder struggles with it. Is that a downy or a hairy woodpecker? I used to struggle with that, but now I'm down in Florida looking for the red-cockaded woodpecker, but I'm injured. I put this video together, which goes through all 22 woodpeckers of North America, starting with the easy ones, like the ones you're gonna see and that you do have in your backyard, all the way to the rare ones like this one in Florida that you can only find in one little spot in the US. I'm gonna teach you how to identify them all. If you're a newbie or you're an expert bird watcher and you wanna learn one thing new about woodpeckers, this is your video. This is a two-part series, and this is part one. I love woodpeckers. I think I say that about every species. But when you're out in the woods, it's the bird that always, at least to me, sounds like they're saying hi. When they're pecking in the distance, they're like, you're not alone. I'm here, I'm just doing my thing. See if you can find me. Especially like if I'm in foreign countries or new parts of the country. Just hearing that pounding or that drumming or that pecking, it makes me want to find the bird. There's always an excitement of, is it going to be a downy? Is it going to be a hairy? Is it going to be something bigger? And you can kind of tell by the sound of the drumming how big the woodpecker is. And that's always a game for me. Does it sound like a sapsucker? Does it sound like a flicker? What is that bird? So I'm going to go through all the woodpeckers found in US and Canada. You're not going to believe it. There are 22 woodpeckers. Look at this list. I was surprised when I put this together. How many of these have you seen? Did that surprise you when I said there's 22 woodpeckers? I went through my list. I've seen all but 3 of these. So I'm going to try to circle the 3 that I'm still missing and go find them. All right. As always, I'm going to start with the most common and then work my way kind of to the west of the US and to the south where some real specialties are. All right, I've broken them up into 3 categories: woodpeckers, if they got the name woodpecker in their name, flickers, and sapsuckers. This is video 1. We're going to go through most of these woodpeckers, but we're going to save the flickers and sapsuckers for the next video. There we go. Starting with the most common in North America, the downy. If you're a backyard bird feeder, I'm sure you've got a downy woodpecker or 2 coming. I've got 2 pairs that visit my yard every day. They come to my suet feeder. If you're looking for them in your backyard, put up a suet cake. Doesn't have to be complicated. They've got little cages you put them in. And if you don't have it already, you'll get one within a couple days. They are all over US and Canada, very common. And they'll even come to my bird bath and take a bath in that. And they're not strictly suet feeders. They'll eat the peanuts and the sunflowers. And the way I remember the call of the downy is the downy woodpecker makes a call that goes down. So when they're squawking, they'll downy goes down. All right, so it's a black and white woodpecker with a white back stripe there. Very short bill. And in this presentation, you're going to see males versus females. All right, most of the time on a woodpecker, there's a little bit of red, a little bit of extra color on the male. That's the case here with the downy. The male's got a little red spot in the back of its head, where the female doesn't. She's strictly all black and white. And what you'll see is the short bill. This bill is about half the size of the head, so it's very small in comparison to the head. That's important when we start looking at the hairy woodpecker next. Also look to the diagnostic on a downy is there's these outer dots, these black dots on their tail feathers. You see how their tail goes black in the middle and then white on the edges, and then these little black dots. You can see it there on the female as well. The hairy woodpecker doesn't have those dots. They're all white. All right. So important to see is that white stripe on the back, because there's other woodpeckers later on the presentation that don't have a white middle of the back. We'll talk about that a little later. There we go, the male and the female downy. All right, next, of course, is going to be the hairy. It's the next most common bird, woodpecker, in your backyard. It's also found all over the East Coast, the West Coast, Canada, US. And what it is, it's basically the downy on steroids. Here's a side-by-side comparison. It's much, much bigger. All right, so it's, I don't know, 3 inches or so bigger. And its bill is about the same length as its head. So it's a giant chisel of a bill there. And they're using these to chisel through the wood. So here's a female, same, no red. Male's got that little red patch in the back of its head. No dots on its outer tail feather. Here's a good picture here with the female. So it's all white on the outer. And what you can see also in another diagnostic here is this red patch on the males. You see the downy, it's one solid red patch. Whereas the hairy, it's broken up. There's 2 red patches broken up by that black stripe down the back, kind of like a mullet there. So if that stripe is broken, it's a hairy. Sometimes you only see part of the head through the tree branches, and you might only see that red patch. So there's another good diagnostic. All right, the hairy. Well done. Everyone loves the pileated. Some people call it pileated. I call it pileated. That's the way I was taught. I talk as a funny American, so you can say what you like, but pileated, it's a giant woodpecker. And when you see one, you realize how enormous they are. And they're found in old, mature forests. And they're not always up on the tree. I find them often on the ground on a big decaying log and just going to town, pecking, digging it up and finding those bugs that are under those decaying logs. What you'll notice when they're flying, because they've got this giant undulating flight where they go whoa, up and down, is you see those white underwings there. It's very striking, black and white. Here you can see this as they're flying. And that shape there, that U, as it's going up and down, up and down. And the males and the females, once again, there's a little red stripe there on the face, like a little red mustache on the male pileated, and the female, it's just a black stripe there. So that extra red on the face, that's a male. Once again, it's also found in the East Coast or far out on the west. So there's a few states in the middle that you're not going to find these, but they've made their way over to the West Coast, other side of the Rockies. You won't forget if you've seen this woodpecker. It always brightens my day. Next is the red-bellied woodpecker. We've got these in our backyard. It always when you see these at your feeder, they are backyard feeders, whereas the pileated won't really come to your feeder. Occasionally, I've had it maybe once in 4 years. It'll come to the suet feeder, but these guys, the red-bellied, every day. They're there. If you put suet out and whole-shelled peanuts, like I put those out for the blue jays, but the red-bellied, they love them. They're kind of the bullies. They dominate my bird feeder. It's as far as pecking order go. These guys are the top. They've got a churr, rolling churr sound. Once you hear that, you'll start hearing it everywhere. The red-bellied woodpeckers are found in the east. All right, and you might think, well, why is it called a red-bellied? Because it looks to me like a red-headed. And that's a big confusion is folks call these red-headed woodpeckers because they've got red on their head. But no, that's not. There's a red little spot that you barely see. And most of the time you'll never see it. So just depending on the bird and its coloration and whether it's in breeding time or not, you see this, here's a patch here of red on their belly. Okay, so that's where it gets its name from, red-bellied. And telling the difference between male and female, the male's got red all the way from its neck all the way to its bill. And on the female, it's not as bright, and the red stops at the top of its crown, and then there's no red, and then it picks it up again right by the bill. So if it's got a bald patch or a receding hairline, that's a female, and the male is a continuous. So what's the confusion here? Well, here is an actual red-headed woodpecker. It's the one we're going to talk about next, but here's a side-by-side red-bellied, red-headed. So red-headed is way more rare, way more uncommon. So when I see a red-headed woodpecker on someone's checklist, I got to think, did they mean to put red-bellied? Because look how dark crimson the entire head is. Not just that mullet and that stripe, but the whole head is red, and it's such a dark crimson. It's not, when you put them side by side, it's easy to tell them apart. But if you don't know about your birds, it's easy to make that mistake. So let's go talk about the red-headed next. It's a gorgeous bird. It's also found in the east, and it's got this striking black and white combination here, where they even call it, the nickname is the flying checkerboard. You can see it's black and white striped, and it's got maybe a red checker piece there in its head. And you can even kind of see through these trailing edges of its wings there. So that's a juvenile, and that's an adult. Now you'll notice that I don't have male or female anywhere on this. Well, it's because you can't tell them apart. They look the same. The males and females, when they grow up, they've got that dark red crimson head. They're the same. Now it's when they're juvenile, I see them like this here. During migration in the first year, they'll look like this, where it's kind of brownish head, but you can start seeing the red come out. But it's got that same black and white checker pattern. Now, you can tell the difference on the woodpeckers if you look at their behavior. So that's an interesting way to tell male from female, because they are cavity nesters. You see here's a picture of the red-headed going into their cavity hole that they've created. Now it's the male that makes the cavity, makes the hole, and they make a new one every year. And the female comes in as the home inspector and either approves the home and says, yep, I'm ready to move in, or she doesn't. And the way she gives that approval is she starts poking all around the hole to give her approval, which is kind of neat. And then she goes in, and then she starts her nesting. The other time that they communicate with their behavior is when the female is inside on incubating the eggs. When she's ready to leave the nest, she tells her partner that she's ready to leave by pecking on the tree, on the hollow sides of the tree, and then he'll come, and then she'll leave, and then he goes and sits on the eggs. So that's kind of an interesting behavior to look out for if you're lucky to have red-headed woodpeckers nesting in your area. All right, the flying checkerboard. Beautiful woodpecker. All right, the next woodpecker. Black-backed woodpecker. It's found in the northern U.S. and Canada, and then down into the Rocky Mountains and the Sierra Nevadas of California, Oregon, and Washington. Now, this woodpecker is a specialist where it survives in burnt forests. And if you want to find a black-backed woodpecker, you got to go find a forest that's burnt down. Because what it does, it feeds on these wood-boring beetle larvae. So when these beetles that want to eat the decaying burnt wood go there and they eat and they lay their eggs or their larvae, these woodpeckers are the ones that come and eat the larvae. So they know that the best spot for their food is a burnt forest. And so the way I remember it is they got this all black back, right? Almost like it's been burnt as well when the forest fire went through the woods. So it's a glossy back too, and it's beautiful. It's striking, and not. It doesn't have red on its head like other woodpeckers we've talked about. It's got this yellow, So there's two woodpeckers here in a row that we're going to talk about with the yellow. The male's got yellow on its head. The female doesn't. It's almost all black with this barring on the sides and on the chest. So when I say barring, it's like these thin stripes that look like, I don't know, jail bars. So there's on the male and there's on the female, and they've got this one white stripe over its bill that comes around. So here's on the female, that one white stripe. So look for them, and it says they last for up to 8 years in the same area after a forest fire. So that's how much food is brought in by these beetles to help decay the forest. That's great. And they're medium sized. They're pretty big. Their smaller cousin, which is similar and kind of does the same thing, is the American three-toed woodpecker. Now, also found in the north and in the high elevation mountains of the west. And it's the same deal as the black-backed. They come in after a forest has been burnt. But you can tell them apart because they're not as boldly black, right? You can see here on their back, they've got this white smudgy marks in the middle of their back. So whereas the black-backed is all black, here you've got the smudgy white bits, all right? And on the male also has some yellow, but it's not as crisp and clean as the black-backed. If you see that here, it's like a distinct yellow spot and then all black. Here it's kind of mottled, it's kind of splotchy. It's almost got like a sapsucker look where it's not clean and crisp. It's kind of finger paintery, you know? It's kind of not that clean. And they're all like this. Here the female, same appearance without the yellow spot, right? Just kind of smudgy, not crisp, not clean, and it's a little smaller than the black-backed. They also come into burnout forests. And the last thing I wanted to mention is the name, three-toed woodpecker. Well, it's true. They've got 3 toes, whereas all the other woodpeckers have 4. Now, the other woodpecker that has 3 is, you guessed it, the black-backed, and then there's a European three-toed woodpecker. Now, they say they've got those 3 toes, which changes their posture. It allows them to be a little further back from the wood and allows them to really, like, as far as like PSI or strength per square inch, they can pound harder than other woodpeckers because of the 3 toes, which helps because they're going after hard wood that's been burnt. So it gives them that extra power to get through this hard wood. Kind of cool. Next is the Florida specialty, right? I call this the Florida bird. But it's not just in Florida, it's in the southeast U.S., so Georgia and the Carolinas, I think even over to Alabama. It's the Red-cockaded Woodpecker. And it's not easy to find. I've been to Florida 6 times and I still haven't seen this woodpecker. So it's one of the 3 I'm still missing. It's a white-cheeked woody. That's how you tell it apart, right, from the other similar black and white woodpeckers. It has an all-white patch there, right? All white, red-cockaded. And you're like, that's a weird name, cockaded. It's a little less not very often used word, which shows a tiny little red spot there. And most of the time, you can't even see it on the male. So that's why it's hard. Like this, I'm calling an adult because it could be a male. You just can't see the red stripe there. And the reason why they've got bands, you see these bands on these birds, it's because they're an endangered woodpecker. They're not that common. And so these have been banded and they're being studied for science there. So it was I think it started getting endangered in the 70s, I believe. And the reason why they're endangered is because they got a very specialized habitat. And They like longleaf pines. Here's an example of this tree with no understory. So if you can see the pine tree all the way down to the ground with no brush or other shrubs and small plants, that's good habitat in the south. But development comes, they take away these pine stands, and with it goes the red-cockaded woodpecker. It's like the downy and the hairy that are everywhere, right? They can live in all habitats, where this one is specialized to only want one. What they do is they find these longleaf pines, and it's not just any pine. They want one that has a disease in it that allows them to hollow out the inside and dig into the heartwood, right? The soft parts in the middle. And then they hollow that out and live in that burrow. And down in the south, there's a lot of snakes and there's a lot of predation on these nests. So what they do is they make a really big cavity and a place where the eggs can be down and around the corner or up, and so that the snakes can't get to them. And their other method to help themselves is they take last year's babies, and usually it's the boys, stick around and help raise the young and defend the nest and kind of guard. So it's kind of cool that family groups over generations help raise the young, which isn't common in woodpeckers. One way to find the red-cockaded woodpecker is you're going to look for those trees that have the holes, and because it's a live tree, that sap is kind of oozing out of that hole, out of the heartwood, and kind of going down the tree trunk. So look for a hole with kind of ooze coming out of it. You'll find the woodpecker. I just haven't yet. I'm still looking. All right, next is the Arizona woodpecker. By far in this list, the lowest population of woodpeckers in the U.S. here. I think they say there's only 5,000 of these in the U.S. It's because it's basically a Mexican bird that just barely pops into the U.S. way in the south of Arizona or on the border with New Mexico. Super limited range, but it's an easy one to identify because it's the only all brown woodpecker. The males have a kind of a red triangle crest, and the females don't. Beautiful bird. I saw this down in the Madera Canyon, south of Tucson. Easy to find if you're in the right area. Impossible to find if you're not in the south of Arizona. Ladder-backed woodpecker. Here's another southern southwest specialty found in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and a little bit of California. These are small desert-loving cactus woodpeckers. You can convince them to come to your yard if you live in those areas with mealworms. Normally when I think of mealworms, I think of bluebirds. That's what we feed in our yard to get bluebirds. But this woodpecker will take it. The way I remember the ladder-backed woodpecker, because there's a very similar one that we're going to look at next, is these are the ladders that I imagine how it got its name, right? So you climb the rung of the ladders all the way to the top. So you can see the ladder goes all the way up to its neck. All right. You're going to see why that's important on the next slide. These guys, they build their nests in cactuses. They're known as the cactus woodpecker. There's another one that we'll see later on, the Gila woodpecker, that does the same thing. But yep, when you're down in the south of Texas or in Arizona, you don't have many trees to choose from. So get on the cactus train. Males also, red head. Females don't. And it looks like it's got a white head with a black stripe. All right. The next similar looking is the Nuttall's woodpecker. This woodpecker is almost 100% in California. right? There's just a little bit on the bordering states, but really it's the California woodpecker. And it doesn't overlap with the ladder-backed, but when you look at it, it looks the same. All right, there's just a few subtle differences I'll show you. But there's no overlap really in their range with the ladder-backed. So if it's in California and it looks like this, it's going to be a Nuttall's. Now, there are Downy woodpeckers in this area. So let me just show you the little difference here is the Downy has those same ladders, but they only go halfway up, right? And then it's a black with that white skunk stripe down the middle. Where here, the Nuttall's goes all the way up, but it stops just almost at the top, okay? And then the male's got this red crown, and the female doesn't. Now, when I said the ladder-back looked like it had a white face with a black stripe, this to me looks like it's got a black face with a white stripe. Isn't that interesting? All right, I'm going to show you now side by side. All right, the ladder-backed versus the Nuttall's. All right, I put the males side by side. See, this ladder on the ladder-back, you take it all the way to the top. Where on the Nuttall's, it stops right there. That ladder only goes 90% up, and then there's a really thick black stripe. You don't have that here. So that's how you tell. The ladder goes all the way to the top. And look at the red crown. The ladder-backed, look, it's a complete red crown where the Nuttall's stops. It's almost like it's got a receding hairline. That red is slipped back a bit. All right, let's look at the females. Same thing. The ladder-back goes all the way up, and the Nuttall's stops here at the 90% mark. And then we got that black face with a white stripe versus a white face with a black stripe. All right, and the ranges don't overlap. So depending on if you're in Arizona or if you're in California. Thanks for geeking out with me over woodpeckers for the last 20 minutes. I really hope this cracks the, is that a hairy or a downy woodpecker for you? If you want more woodpeckers, which I know you do, stay tuned for week 2. If you subscribe, you'll be the first to know when part 2 is available. And if you love these ID tips and tricks, subscribe to my newsletter. It's right here. I'll give you ID tips, birding goodness. Follow me on all my birding travel. And I know you're a busy professional birder trying to make time for bird watching. I'll give you all those tips too. All right, see you on the trail.